So strategy number one, and this is again where we're going to go through these four and hopefully just give you something really actionable to take back to each of your organizations. This is all about member communication preferences. And I think the fundamental place to start with is the problem here. There is such an inundation of information that it's not all working in chorus. A study found that members might be receiving up to 200 messages per year as it pertains to their medical and supplemental benefits. This is totally overwhelming. And especially if a member doesn't feel like they can be on top of quarterbacking how those messages come in, what we're creating is noise and abrasion rather than synthesis and ease of information to access. So when we think about the diversity, especially as we get into Medicare ages. And it's not that SMS is objectively a better method of outreach. It's not that print or telephonic outreach is fundamentally better. It's about each member being different. And even within those cohorts across that 65, very different than 80, very different than 90, making sure that we've got the capabilities to meet people where they are is increasingly going to be critical. If I can get all of those messages because my preference is everything is managed via email, I should be able to dictate that. If the member down the street from me really wants that communication and connectivity and to feel like they have a relationship with a plan, maybe telephonic or even in-person outreach in the home or in the doctor's office is where a lot of that communication needs to happen. The fundamental point, though, is we need a method by which we can ask the member, how do you want to be communicated with? And a repository for that information that we can then act upon. So again, I talked at the top about having a sophisticated and robust member engagement platform and member correspondence platform is one where you can grab that communication preference and then say, hereafter, everything is going to be primarily disseminated via insert member preference here. Now, we may have subsequent communications. This is not to say we should negate multimodal comm at all. It's just to say that we should absolutely respect the member when they tell us, I really want to be reached out to via phone, so reach out to me via phone. We know that that has an increase in the likelihood of engagement versus if we send that member a letter or an email or something else. So it's simply being responsive and respecting those preferences. It sounds easy at a human level, but we operate in systems because of the volumes of people that we manage. So having that communications preference portal be one and the same with ultimately how those messages are disseminated out is a really important strategy to be pursuing here. So how do we do that? Let's think about the most frequent ways and methods through which we are connecting with the membership on an annual basis. And we're using the example here of an ID card and a welcome letter. Now, this could be anything. You saw at the top when I was referring to all the different communication modalities that go out to these members. But to simplify it down to just that initial touch point in a calendar year, let's think about what we've got with Wind at our sails on this one. We know that these ID cards or those initial correspondence are opened at an incredibly high rate, like things that would make our email marketers just dream of having open rates like this. So you've got that captive audience and that reach. And that's a real kind of secret sauce of some of these things like ID cards in your print correspondence. And so what are we doing with that? I think far too often we see plans that say, as long as we get them their card, we've sort of fulfilled our end of the bargain. But the opportunity and the ceiling for what you can do with that is so much higher, because if you've got those eyeballs on that page for 1 to 2 to 3 minutes with that initial open, then you can now reach out and give the member a handshake with the information to say, hey, we want to communicate with you all year. And while mail may not be what you want to receive ongoing, since I've got you, I want to let you know about this communications preferences portal. Now, go on in there, and if you want to select SMS or email, or you want to keep getting things from mail, or you want to do things telephonically, whatever that is, you can go in or you can adjust it later. But the goal is that over the course of 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, We've gone from a member communications preferences portal that has maybe 5 or 10% of the preferences for members, increasingly 3 to 5% a year. And what this means is after 5 years, the competition is going to be significantly behind in how they're talking to their members, but you will have saved these and memorialized them in a place that's highly actionable. So it's really twofold with this. I love the example because those beginning of the year ID card distributions are so widely attended to. And it's also just making sure that when you've got that wide attention, you're asking them to do something really poignant that's going to extend the life of how you talk to them ongoing. A couple other bells and whistles in here. QR codes. Again, we see a delta between how a younger Medicare population versus an older responds with these. But one thing that's true across the board for any age cohort is there is an additive lift if these are included. So there may be a higher percentage of usage from a 66-year-old than from an 80-year-old, but the 80-year-olds on the entire population will have more engagement just by having these additional modalities available to them. So highly encourage the use of QRs, highly encourage the use of these dead spaces. We could otherwise leave this top right of a letter just completely blank. Big missed opportunity. And that's really a leaving money on the table when we distill it all the way down to members that don't feel communicated with have a higher likelihood of attrition. This is trying to stop that right at the source. So great ones to consider and think about.